Welcome back to the channel, guys. Sorry that I haven't been around for a little bit. It's been really busy starting law school next week and just with the kids and everything. But, I seen that one of the most watched videos on my channel has to do with the LSAT and specifically the 5 tips. I guess the only video I have so far on there in regards to the LSAT. But I wanted to do a follow-up on that, specifically focusing on the second tip, which is grasping English. There's a number of resources that I think are going to be helpful to you if you're heading down that path, if you really want to take advantage of that tip. And I think it's going to be helpful if I also go through the process. I'm going to do a logical reasoning section here. There's a free LSAT that you can get from LSAC, this one, so I'm going to do that, the first logical reasoning section. We'll do it together, and I think that's going to be helpful to see how you can apply the English into the actual LSAT and why it's helpful. So we'll do that, and then in terms of resources, I'll put the link in the description. There's a number of books that I think are helpful. There's one specifically that is very helpful, has to do with diagramming sentences, and I know that sounds silly, but it's really helpful if you go through it and you get all the information you can get. I have it open here. Where was it? I think it's in one of these. I know I got a lot of tabs. I like tabs. There you go. So this is a great book. I found it. It's free. It's a PDF guide to parts of speech with diagramming. It's really helpful. You can download it. I'll put the link in the below. But it talks about all the different parts of speech so you can differentiate between them. It also talks about how you structure sentences. Really helpful. Just really helpful. Which parts of the speech modify which other parts of speech, how they work together. It dives into grammar errors as well, which is very helpful. Sentence structures, the moods, all that. It's just a really good book. Really dives really deep into it. So this is a really good book. And there's another book, I think it's called the Oxford Grammar. It's a PDF. It's a free PDF as well. I'll put it in the description. It's really helpful. So with that being said, you guys can take that, you spend a week on your time to go through it. That's what I did when I was prepping, and it was really helpful. In addition to that, like I said, I wanted to do the LSAT, and I have it open here somewhere. So this is the one. You can go to the LSAT website and download it. It's the free one, the official prep test. I got a little sheet, so I'm gonna write them down. We'll do it live. We'll see how I do, and I think it's going to be helpful. We'll give you like an understanding of my process going through it, as I'm going through it, and then also kind of tie into that second tip of why the English was so helpful getting through it. So I guess you guys can read on your own, but we'll read it together is what I was thinking here. So right, the question one, when I get to a question, I always read this part first, the actual question. So this is the stem, this is the question, these are the answer choices. Always read the question first. It gives you an idea of what you're actually going to be looking for when you're reading the stem. So I think, in my opinion, saves you time. I know there's some divergent, opinions on this. Some people want you to read the question first, then the stem, but that's what I found works best for me. So, and if you go through those Bibles, you'll be able to qualify questions really quickly, classify them, into different categories, so you'll know what you need to do. This one here, which one of the following most accurately expresses the main conclusion? So this is really easy, right? All you have to do is find the main conclusion. The way I figure this in the book has a way of doing it, using the qualifiers in terms of either using because and then since, and trying to figure out how it flows. But ultimately it's kind of like the core message of what needs to be said, right, of what the author's trying to say. So when you're looking at it, think about it if it's supporting anything else, or if it's resting on all the other ones. If you think about it as a pyramid, that really helps. So looking at this one we have here, these first ones are going to be really easy. Every business strives to increase its productivity. All right, so here we have every business, right? We already know the first part of it. The essence, the subject is the business. So every business strives to increase. Strives, again, is a verb. Then we have an infinitive verb, to increase its productivity. The business's productivity, right? We have the pronoun there, and it ties into it, the reflexive pronoun, and it talks about productivity. So we know what it's trying to do. Every business tries to increase its productivity. For this reason, right, understanding that flows through from what we just said. For this reason, increases, it flows from it. For this increase, profits for the owners and the likelihood that the business will survive, right? So increased profits and likelihood the business will survive, right? Both of those things, good. But not all efforts to increase productivity are beneficial to the business as a whole. Right there, that is huge, right? Because this first statement is just a little statement. Here, it's an opinion. But not all efforts to increase productivity are beneficial to the business owner. That's huge. Often, attempts to increase productivity decrease the number of employees. And here he's just giving us details as to supporting this, right? So it's just a general statement. This is his opinion. And then on the bottom, boom, he hits us with why he thinks this. Often, again, adverbial, attempts to increase productivity, right? This is essentially the noun phrase that I guess it's not even a noun phrase because it's attempts here, but it's essentially acting as an object, as a subject. Often attempts to increase productivity decrease the number of employees, right? We know what it does, which clearly harms the dismissed employees as well as the sense of security of the retained employees. So definitely it harms the employees and the other employees that continue to work for there, which again can impact the business survival. So we're going to have to find this, but not all efforts to increase productivity are beneficial to the business as a whole. That's going to be the answer. Which of the following expresses my inclusion? If an action taken to secure the survival of a business fails to enhance the welfare of the business's employees, that action cannot be good for the business as a whole, right? This is giving us a conditional, so not necessarily the right thing. All he's saying is not all efforts to increase productivity are beneficial. So this is a little bit too strong. Some measures taken by a business to increase productivity fail to be beneficial to the business as a whole. This is really good. Right, we really like this, and honestly, on the test, seeing this one, I would have picked it right away. Only if the employees, and just moved on. I wouldn't have even read all this crap. That's how you get more time. Only if the employees of a business are also its owners with the interest of the employees. That right off the bat, you know this is trash. You don't even need to read this. Like, that's totally trying to take you the wrong direction. There is no business that does not make efforts to increase its productivity. Again, trash. You don't need it. Decreasing the number of employees in a business undermines the sense of security of the retained employees. True, but essentially it's stating what is being said here, and that is, this information supports his claim here. So we know this one, number one, B. And again, I'm doing, like, as I'm going through the process, obviously it's going to take me a little longer to articulate what I'm actually doing, but in the test, you'll be doing this in your head. It's going to be a lot easier. And like I said, on a question like this, first question, you see this answer right here, you just pick it. Forget about reading all this stuff, because that's another 30 seconds of you reading and trying to analyze that you could have saved and had for another question. Right? Which of the following, again, we'll read the question first. Which of the following uses flawed reasoning that most closely resembles the flawed reasoning used in the argument above? All right. So let's see which one it is. All Labrador Retrievers bark a great deal. Cool. Again, you have all Labrador Retrievers bark a great deal. Understand that. So this is obviously, and what I do, and it sounds silly, but when I'm doing it, I'm actually thinking of all these things as subjects, as verbs, as objects, how they interact. Like when you go through the guide in terms of diagramming it, that's what I'm doing in my head. And it really helps me focus in on the information, because when you force yourself to do that, you start putting this information in different compartments in your brain, and it just becomes easier to actually take it in. And it's really good when you're doing the reading comprehension, because otherwise, you can read something and it gets out of your head right away. But when you're doing this extra work, it's got a higher probability of remaining in your mind, at least in the short-term memory. So all Labrador Retrievers bark a great deal. All right, we understand that. So this is essentially the compound noun that we're, all of these are adjectives for retrievers, and this is not really an adjective. This is actually it is, right? What was the name of it? It's a qualifying. It's another type of adjective that essentially says, some, all, most. These are kind of adjectives, and they can also work as pronouns as well. But all Labrador Retrievers bark a great deal, right? Bark, and then we have a determiner, a great deal. Okay. All Saint Bernards bark infrequently. So Labrador Retrievers, they bark a lot. Saint Bernard, not so much. Each of Rosa's dogs is a cross between a Labrador Retriever and a Saint Bernard. All right, understand that? Pretty cool. They're mixed. Therefore, Rosa's dogs are moderate barkers. All right, so one really high, one really low. They meet in the middle. Which are following flawed reasoning that most closely resembles the flawed. Okay, all students who study diligently make good grades. All right, that's good. All of them who study. Okay, but some students right away. What the hell does this mean? Some students. Nah, crap. Doesn't make sense. Just cut it out. All type A chemicals are extreme toxic to human beings. All type B chemicals are non-toxic. Extreme toxicity, not toxicity. We're talking about all in both cases. This household cleaner is a mixture of type A and type B. Therefore, this household cleaner is moderate toxic. Right off the bat, we know this is B. Again, if this was a test, sorry, my eyes are hurting. It's late at night. If this was a test, it's a B. Right? I'm putting it down as B because I'm almost positive. But for the sake of it, you can read the other one. All students of That's a school life in Green Country. All students live in members of the Per family attend both Hanson and Edwards. Therefore, some are members of this total nonsense. Just you see, and if you start really thinking about it, you can waste a lot of time reading this answer. All transcriptions known. All transcription is no shorthand. All engineers know calculus. Both. Bob has worked both as a transcription as an engineer. Therefore, Bob knows both. No, it's not the same as that, right? Because Bob is like a mix. And although he's a mix too, this is not necessarily saying the same thing, because it's saying that Bob knows both shorthand and calculus, which is not the same here, right? But again, this answer could confuse you. And one thing you gotta focus on here is this adjective right here, most, right? Most closely, right? Resembles. Okay, and actually we have adverb in this case because it modifies an adjective already. Closely resembles, most closely resembles, right? That's really important. And this one, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be crap, but all of Keisha's dresses are very well made. All of Kieran's dresses are very badly made. Half of the dresses in their closets are well made, and half of them are badly made. Therefore, yeah, totally get it out of the way. So you got two B's here. All right, which of the following most logically completes an argument? This is easy. You read what's happening here, and what I like to do is, even before I get to the answer, I really want to focus on what I think the answer is going to be. But a century in certain ways is like a life. All right, a century in certain ways, right? This modified century in certain ways is like a life. Is in certain ways. No, this in certain ways is an adverb. I think that qualifies this. So a century is like a life in certain ways. Okay, and as the end of a century approaches, people behave towards that century much as someone who is nearing the end of life does towards that life. So just as people in the last year spend much time looking back on the events of their life, people at the century's end are going to be looking at the century's end. Reminisce about their own lives? No. Fear that their own lives are about to end? No. Focus on what the next century will bring? No. Become very interested in the history of the century just ending? Yes. Reflect on how certain... so this one is D. Right? Number 4. The reasoning in the consumer's argument is most vulnerable to criticism on the grounds of the argument. This I love. I love these criticism ones. Okay. Consumer, this is what he's saying. So we got to find something that's flawed in his. The latest Connery report suggests that Oxenfree prepackaged meals are virtually devoid of nutritional values. Okay, so this report suggesting that Oxenfree prepackaged meals are virtually devoid. But the Connery report is commissioned by Danto Foods, Office's largest corporate rival. Okay, so Danto Foods, unappropriate. Is essentially Oxford's largest corporate rival. And early drafts of the report are submitted for approval to Danto Foods Public Relations Department. So the largest rival, and they get to see the report. Because of the obvious bias of this report, it is clear that Oxford's packaged meals really are nutritious. All right, he makes a big leap here, right? Just because there's bias doesn't mean that these things are nutritious. Who knows, right? He's making a big leap, right? Let's see what it is. That's definitely the flaw. Treats evidence that there is an apparent bias as evidence that Connor's claims are false. He's not saying that they're... Yeah, I guess this is pretty good. Let's keep going, because it's most as when vulnerable. Draws a conclusion based solely on the unrepresented sample of vulnerable products. No, it's not unrepresented. Fails to take into account the possibility that it has much motivation to create negative publicity for Danto. No, definitely not these ones. Fails to provide evidence that Danto Foods prepackaged meals are not more nutritious. No, he's not saying that they're more nutritious. Just saying the meals really are nutritious. Okay, it's not saying that. Presumes without proper information that the Danto Foods Public Relations Department would not approve a draft of a report that was Halston. No, this one's A for sure. Remember, we've seen it. We thought it was good. We're gonna go with A again on the test. If you have these kind of questions, I don't encourage you to spend more time than you need on the question. Spend some time like when you're reading it, but when you go to the answers, pick one and go with it. Which of the following, if true, would count as evidence against the scientist's explanation of Earth's warming? All right, something that's going to count as evidence against the warming. Let's see. Earth's average annual temperature has increased by about 0.5 degrees Celsius over the last century. All right, we'll keep that in mind. It has increased over the last century about 0.5 degrees. This warming is primarily the result of the buildup of minor gases in the atmosphere, blocking the outward flow of heat from the planet. All right, so he's giving us a reason why it's happening. And the question is, which one of the following, if true, would count as evidence against the scientific explanation? So his explanation is that the warming is primarily a result of a buildup of minor gases in the atmosphere. These gases are blocking the release. So one of these has to essentially break that and say that's not the case. Only some of the minor gases, minor gases whose presence in the atmosphere allegedly resulted in the phenomena described by the scientists, were produced by natural producers. Doesn't matter. It's not even related. Most of the warming occurred before 1940, while most of the buildup of minor gases in the atmosphere occurred after 1940. This was not too bad. Increased over the last century. Okay. So it makes primary result of buildup blocking them. So most of the warming occurred before the minor gas. This is pretty good. This kind of puts a wrench in his argument. Over the last century, Earth received slightly more solar radiation in certain years than it did in others. Not relevant. Volcanic dust and other particles in the atmosphere reflect much of the sun's radiation back into space. Not relevant. The accumulation of minor gases in the atmosphere has been greater over the last century than at any other time. This is supporting. It makes his argument best. So we're gonna go with B here. 5 is B. The argument's conclusion follows logically if which one of the following is assumed. These are good. So when it says this, conclusion follows logically if which one of the following are assumed, it's a sufficient assumption question. So essentially, or the Bible calls them justified questions. But what you want to do is you find a conclusion, and then one of these things here is going to make sure if one of these things happen, the conclusion has to take place. These answers are sufficient. In essence, when they happen, you know the conclusion happens. All right, an undergraduate degree is necessary for appointment to an executive board. All right, undergraduate degree is necessary to okay. Further, no one with a felony conviction can be appointed to the board. All right, keep those two in mind. So undergraduate degree is required. No one with a felony conviction can be appointed to the board. Thus, Murray, an accountant with both a bachelor's and a master's degree, cannot be accepted for the position of executive administrator since he has a felony conviction. Again, right here we see the problem. Up top they're talking about executive board, and then here they're making a jump to an executive administrator. So the only way that can be true is if this individual is on the board, or there's some link between these two. There's got to be a link. Okay, so let's look at the answer. The argument's conclusion follows logically if which one of the following is assumed. Anyone with a master's degree and without a felony conviction is eligible for appointment to the executive board. Okay, but that's executive board doesn't talk to us about executive. Only candidates eligible for appointment to the executive board can be accepted for the position of executive administrator. Okay, this just fills the whole gap. This is super easy. All right, so that's another B. There's a lot of B's here that I'm seeing. Hopefully we're right. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't even want to read anything else. An undergraduate degree is not necessary for the acceptance of the position. Okay, if Murray did not have a felony conviction, he would be accepted. But that's not relevant. The felony charge on which Murray was convicted is, it's not, doesn't matter. I'm going to 7. After this, we'll do 7. Every time we hit 7, we'll check them out because I can hide the other ones so I don't ruin the results. All right, and like I said, when you're in the test, when I talk about take your time, when you're doing a test the first time, take as much time as you need. The first 10 tests, take as much time as you need to get an understanding of these questions. So don't rush. Which one? The actions of which one of the following individuals exhibit the most advanced kind of moral motivation, as described by the ethicist? This is good. So, this is gonna really help us with the English is gonna be helpful here. So, the most advanced kinds of moral motivation. Okay, so you're talking about the most advanced kind of moral motivation. So this is essentially functioning as a subject, right? It's pretty long, and there's a lot of qualifiers. There's a determiner. Right, most advanced, an adverb. What do we have here? An adjective, kind of motivation. So this is also functioning as an adjective, right? Because moral motivation is just making it an interesting one. But we're talking about moral motivation is based solely on abstract principles. So there's a link there. Most advanced kind of moral motivation equals based on abstract principles. This form of motivation is in contrast with calculated self-interest. This kind of motivation is in contrast with calculated or the desire to adhere to societal norms and conventions. So obviously this does not have much abstraction because you're essentially focusing on what society wants and on conventions, while the most advanced kind of moral motivation is something that's not driven by other people, by society. That's what I'm getting from this. So let's see what it says here. The action of which one of the following individuals exhibit the most advanced kind of motivation. So it has to be abstract, can't be relying on other people. Bobby contributed money to a local charity during a charity drive at work because he worried that not doing so would make him look stingy. That's not more motivation. Wes contributed money on a local charity during a charity drive at work because he believed that doing so would improve his employers. No. Donna's employers engaged in an illegal but profitable practice that causes serious damage to the environment. Donna did not report this practice to the authorities out of fear that her employer would... No. Dana's employers engage in illegal but profitable practice that causes serious damage to the environment. Jenny reports this practice to the authorities out of the belief that protecting the environment is always more important than monetary profit. Oof, this sounds friggin' good, right? This sounds great. Well, exactly what we're talking about. Leah's employers engaged in illegal but profitable practices that cause serious damage to the environment. Leah has reported this practice to the authorities only because several colleagues have been okay, so D. It's pretty damn easy, right? So let's see how we did on the first 7. This is section 2. What I'll do is, best thing to do, and this is what I used to do, I always like to see after the first few. So you go down, where's the answers? You zoom in so you're not going to be able to see the actual other answers because you don't want to ruin it. Okay, and zoom a little more. Can we zoom a little more? Okay, you don't see anything else. So this is the first one that doesn't matter. So let's see what we got here. So we said we got B, B, D, A, B, B, and D. Alright, so we're 7 for 7. See if we can do this. Perfect. Where are we? Alright, section 2, question 7, question 8. We'll do another 7, and then I think I'm going to take a break. It's a lot. It's late. I'll finish the rest of the video tomorrow. How long have it been? Sorry, I don't want to make this video too long either. Where's the... It's already 22 minutes, damn. Okay. Yeah, we'll do the other 2 and then the other 7, and we'll take a little breather. Maybe I'll make it a 2-parter. Alright, which one of the following most logically completes this argument? Which one of the following most logically completes the argument? Similar to what we had above. Proponents of the electric car maintain that when the technical problems associated with its battery design are solved, okay, this is what they maintain, that when they're solved, such cars will be widely used. And because they are emission free, will result in an abatement of the environmental degradation caused by auto emissions. Okay, that's what these proponents are saying. But unless we dam more rivers, so this is coming from the author, the electricity to charge these batteries will come from nuclear or coal-fired power plants. Each of these three power sources produces considerable environmental damages. Okay, but unless we dam more rivers, the electricity to charge these batteries will come from nuclear or power plants. So there's only 2 there, but I guess he's talking even about damming rivers. Each of these 3 power sources produces a considerable... Okay, thus the electric car, which of the following most will have worse environmental consequences as proponents may believe. That's pretty good, right? Worse than they believe. Will probably remain less popular than other types of cars. I'll talk about them being very popular, right? Talk about pollution. Requires that purely technical problems be solved before it can succeed. No, will increase the total level of emissions rather than reduce it. These results produce considerable environmental damage. No, they produce damage, not saying they produce more. Will not produce a net reduction in environmental degradation. Doesn't necessarily say that. It says that, yeah. So this one's A. A's the one it is. I'm almost certain. Next one. Which of the following, if true, would most weaken the argument? Alright. Although video game sales have increased steadily over the past 3 years, alright, so this is a conditional statement, we can expect a reversal of this trend in the very near future. Okay, this is the thing. We can expect a reversal of this trend in the near future. When it comes about this trend, is talking about the fact that the video game sales have increased steadily over the past year. Historically, over 3/4 of video games sold have been purchased by people from 13 to 16 years of age, and the number of people in this age group is expected to decline. So these are the ones purchasing the most, and then they're going to be declining. Which, if only true, most seriously weakens the argument. Okay, so we have a group of people 13 to 16. They're making the most money. They're buying the most purchases, making the most purchases. The expectation is that they're going to decline, and that's why he says we can expect a reversal of this trend. And the trend is they're increasing over time. Okay, which of the following true most weakens? Most people 17 years or older have never purchased a video game. It's kind of into an imitator. trying to lead us down the path that they're going to be purchasing, but that's not the case. Video game rentals have declined over the past 3 years. Okay, that's not relevant. New technology will undoubtedly make entirely new entertainment options, so that's not relevant though. The number of different types of video games available is unlikely to decrease in the near future. The number of different types of video games available. Okay, not relevant. Most of the people who have purchased video games over the past 3 years are over the age of 16. Okay, so essentially this sample is very small, so I'm going to be impactful. Over 16, most of them are over 16 anyways. I think this is good. I'm going with you here. A little faster, take some risks. Which of the following most accurately expresses the main conclusion? The main conclusion, right? Remember, we got to talk about the author's perspective. And if all of it's the author's perspective, then we're talking about what everything else rests on. Double-blind techniques should be used whenever possible in scientific experiments. Okay, double-blind should be used in scientific experiments. All right, we got that. They help prevent the misinterpretation that often arises due to expectations and opinions that scientists already hold. Okay, double-blind, good. We need to keep it up. They help prevent the misinterpretation that often arises due to expectations and opinions of scientists. Okay, that's what they do. And clearly, scientists should be extremely diligent in trying to avoid such misinterpretations. Okay, clearly. If they're important, they're important. Why are they important? They're important because scientists should be extremely diligent in avoiding them. Okay. Also, one time, I think is this: double-blind techniques should be used whenever possible because scientists should be extremely diligent trying to avoid such interpretations, and they help prevent the interpretation of arise due to expectations. Okay, I think this is the scientist. This one, double-blind. Scientists' objectivity may be impeded by interpreting experimental evidence on the basis of exceptional and expectations and options, and they already hold. It is advisable for scientists to use double-blind techniques in as high proportion of their experiments as possible. Yeah, this is pretty good. Scientists sometimes neglect to adequately consider the risk of misinterpretation. No. Whenever possible, scientists should refrain from interpreting evidence on the basis of previous performance. No. Double-blind experimental techniques are often an effective way of ensuring scientific objectivity. This one, B. Alright, that one was a little more difficult. The reference of the complaint of several centuries ago of the powerful memory and extemporaneous eloquence were being destroyed plays which one of the following roles in the argument? Okay. It is now a common complaint that the electronic media have corroded the intellectual skills required and fostered by the literary media. Okay. Electronic media have corroded the intellectual skills required and fostered by the literary media. But several centuries ago, the complaint that certain intellectual skills, such as the powerful memory and extemporaneous eloquence that were intrinsic to oral culture, were being destroyed by the spread of literacy. So what awaits us is probably a mere alteration of the human mind rather than its devolution. So there's going to be a change, not a devolution. They throw us an analogy here of what happened centuries ago or a while ago when we switched from oral culture to literary culture. Okay, let's see what it says. The reference, several centuries ago, powerful memory. Okay, that's... The conclusion is this. So what awaits is probably a mere alteration of the human mind. And this is just, I guess, an analogy that's used to support the argument. Evidence supporting the claim that the intellectual skills fostered by the literary media are being destroyed by the electronic media. No. An illustration of the general hypothesis being advanced that intellectual abilities are inseparable from the means which we made. No. An example of a cultural change that did not necessarily have a detrimental effect on the human mind overall. This is really good. Evidence that the claim that the intellectual skills required and fostered by literary media are being lost is unwarranted. It's kind of good too, but it's talking about things being unwarranted, and that's not what it's really saying here. So what awaits us is probably a mere alteration. It's talking about that there's concerns are definitely there, but they're not unwarranted. Possible evidence mentioned and then dismissed that might be cited by supporters of yeah, this one's C for sure. They try to trick you there with D. D's a little bit of a trick answer, but at least for me, I don't know, maybe different people interpret it, but D's a little bit tricky. But you didn't get me, bruh. Well, maybe, who knows. We'll see. 3 more questions, and then we'll call it a day, guys. So you look at this one. This one's ridiculous. Almost test. Leave this. I left these for last. They're usually easy, but they're so much reading, and we'll try to go to as quickly as possible. So which of the following arguments is most similar in its reasoning? So it's a parallel reasoning. Suppose I have promised to keep a confidence, keep a confidence, and someone asks me a question that I cannot answer. Okay, I keep a confidence in someone who cannot answer truthfully, without thereby breaking the promise of keeping a confidence, keeping a secret. Obviously, I cannot both keep and break the same promise. Okay, therefore, one cannot be obliged both to answer all questions truthfully and to keep all promises. So I guess you have two distinct different, I guess, promises you've made that kind of they don't contradict each other, but they're they're tied in. As if you break one, you cannot keep the other. Which of the following arguments is most similar? It is claimed that we have the unencumbered right to say whatever we want. Okay, we have the right to say what we want. It is also claimed that we have the obligation to be civil to others. But civility requires that we not always say what we want. Okay, so it cannot be true that both that we have the unencumbered right to say whatever we want and that we have the duty to be civil. This is pretty good. Some politicians contain, and honestly, if I was rushing for time, I just picked that. Some politicians could attain popularity with voters only by making extravagant promises. This, however, will deceive the people. So, since the only way for some politicians to be popular, this is nothing. It's not even close. Scratch that out. If we put a lot of effort into making this report look good, the client might think we did so because we believed our proposal would not stand on its own merit. On the other hand, if we do not make a report look good, the client might think that we are not serious about her business. So whatever we do, we risk her criticism. No, this just doesn't sound right. This one sounds better. And again, it's most. If creditors have legitimate claims against the business and the business has the resources to pay those debts, then the business is obliged to pay them. Also, if a business has obligations to pay debts, then the court will force it to pay them. But the courts do not force this business to pay debts, so it's nothing. If we extend our business hours, we will either have to hire new employees or have existing employees work overtime. If we extend it, we'll have to hire new employees or have them work on it. But both new employees and additional overtime will dramatically increase our labor costs. No. This one will go on with A. See? All that extra time spent, probably going to end up being right. Should have just done it right off the bat. A lot of times it's just good. If you feel one answer is good, just pick it. Pick it and move on. The conclusion of the argument falls logic if which one of the following is assumed. So which one of the following is assumed, boom, makes the conclusion appropriate. Okay. Standard aluminium soft drink cans do not vary in the amount of aluminium that they contain. Okay, standard, we understand standard aluminium soft drink cans. So these are all standard aluminium. So adverb, adjective, soft drinks is the soft drink can. So this is even too small, modifying it as well. So cans is what we're talking about. That's the whole, I guess, subject. Do not vary in the amount of aluminium that they contain. So they do not vary, and then we have a preposition here, in the amount, and another one of aluminium that they contain. Okay. 50% of the aluminium contained in a certain group M of standard aluminum soft drink cans was recycled from another group L of used standard aluminum cans. So certain percentage, so 50% of the aluminum contained in this M group of standard aluminum was recycled from L. Okay, so 50% was recycled from L. Since all the cans in L were recycled into cans in M, so all the cans in L were recycled into cans in M, and since the amount of material other than aluminium in in an aluminium can is negligible, it follows that M contains twice as many cans as L. 50% of the aluminium contained. Okay, so 50% of it. Okay. The aluminium in cans of M cannot be recycled further. This doesn't do anything for us. Recycled aluminium is of poor quality. No. All the aluminium in cans is recovered when the can is recycled. This is good because it's telling us that the amount of material, it follows that M contains twice as many. So it better be all of them recovered. This is pretty good. None of the soft drink cans in Group L have been made from recycled aluminium. That makes no difference. Aluminium soft drink cans are more easily recycled than our soft drink cans. This one's C. This one's C 100%. All the other answers are just trash. So you can know this one's C, pretty sure. Which of the following, if true, most seriously weakens? Which of the following, if true, most seriously weakens the argument? A cup of raw milk, after being heated in a microwave oven to 50 degrees Celsius, contains half its initial concentration of a particular enzyme. Okay, so when it's heated to over 50 degrees, it contains half. If, however, the milk reaches that temperature through exposure to a conventional heat source, it will contain nearly all of its initial concentration. Therefore, what destroys the enzyme is not heat, but microwaves, which generates heat. So, which is going to weaken it. And one thing that I think right off the bat is that maybe it's the speed with which it heats, because in a microwave it speeds really quickly. Let's see. Heating milk in a microwave oven to a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius destroys nearly all of the initial present in the milk. It's essentially saying that more of it has to do with the temperature. Enzymes in raw milk that are destroyed through excessive heating can be replaced by adding enzymes that is irrelevant. Because therefore, what destroys? It's talking about what destroys it. All liquid exposure to a conventional heat source of exactly 50 degrees Celsius will reach that temperature more slowly than it would if it were exposed to a conventional heat source. That temperature more slowly than it would if it were exposed to a conventional heat source hotter than 50 degrees Celsius. It's something to do with the fact that it reaches slower. Milk that has been heated in a microwave oven does not taste noticeably different from milk that's been nuts. Doesn't matter. Heating any liquid microwave creates small zones within it that are much hotter than overall temperature that the liquid will ultimately reach. Oh, this is pretty good too. This one's a really tough one. For me, at least. I don't know. A liquid exposed to a conventional heat source of exactly. Therefore, let me just read it one more time, just to be sure. A cup of raw milk after being heated in the microwave, contains half the concentration. If, however, the milk reaches that temperature through exposure to a conventional heat source, 50 degrees, it will contain nearly all of its initial concentration. Therefore, what destroys the enzyme is not heat, but microwave, which generates. So we gotta weaken it. So this weakens it really well. Heating any liquid to creates small zones that are much hotter. So that's really good. A liquid exposed to a conventional heat source of exactly 50 degrees will reach that temperature more slowly. So it's the speed with which you reach it, but this is better because this is talking about the speed. This is talking about the actual exposure. I'm gonna go with E here, and let's see how we did. Remember, we zoom in. It's question number 14. And let's see, section 2. Let's see how we did. All right, section 1, section 2. All right, let's see what we did, boys. Oof, I was looking at the E. That's good. So we have A, E, B, C, A, C, E. All right, so we're 14 for 14. I'm gonna do. Let me see what we got here. 38 minutes. Wow, it's a long time, man. All right, this is gonna be part 1. I'm gonna edit it because I don't have much to editing, and then I'm gonna do part 2 tomorrow, as well. Get through the entire one, see how we did overall. So far, we're doing good, and if you guys like it, I'll post a couple more of these going through it. I don't know if it helps, but hopefully it helps. And again, we didn't encounter any where the grammar was really that helpful, but I think when you're in the test and you're going through it, when you're looking at, again, subject, verb, object, how to tie in what the dependent clauses are tying into the independent clause, how they function, how they operate, I think that can really help. It can get you out of the pickle, and a lot of times, especially on the reading comprehension, it can help you retain that information for that short term that you need to retain it in order to answer the questions. It's not going to be very helpful for the games, the analytical reasoning, but the logical reasoning and the reading comprehension, definitely good. So stop for today. We'll do another video tomorrow.